And greetings, Silverliners, and welcome to that wondrous weekly adventure we call Wednesday Wham. I hope everyone's doing well. We have a crowded house tonight. We are joined by Barbara J. Kelberg, Aaron Humphreys, and a relatively new guest tonight, I guess. I hope he becomes a regular. Rory Boyle, the co-creator of Steam Patriots. We welcome you, sir. How are you?
I couldn't be better.
I'm glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Oh, yes. And Jeremy Kahn has just joined us.
Yeah.
Renowned colorist. How are you, sir?
All right.
Good deal. Good deal.
Sorry, I got a little held up earlier.
Oh, well, I'm glad you made it. We're just getting started, and I was going to announce that our subject tonight. But before that, I always have to acknowledge our great sponsor, the Daytona Beach Comic Convention. They're always very kind to us. And I hope to be attending there next year. But without further delay, let's dive right into our subject tonight. It's sort of a dual subject, and then we have a special announcement a little bit later in the show. Very, very exciting announcement of a new Kickstarter. But before we go there, we are going to talk about two subjects tonight. Number one, how do we win fans' attention, new fans, get folks excited about Silverline titles at a convention? Having just spent the weekend at a convention nearby in Memphis, Tennessee, with my colleague Rory Boyle, we were on the front lines of the face-to-face contact with fans and presenting our titles and original art, prints, and so on. I thought it went well. What did you think, Rory? How'd you feel about it?
I thought it went swimmingly. It doesn't hurt that we were probably the handsomest booth there.
Well, there you have it. Of course, Scott had been there. It would have bent the curve.
Oh man, would have taken everybody.
Especially if he'd have brought his widely known talented skills as a banjo player.
Yes,
that would really sent it over the edge somewhere. Not sure. The second subject we want to cover, suggested by Barb, was how to avoid rookie mistakes when trying to get a gig in the comic book field. What do aspiring comic artists, writers, creators, what common mistakes do they make, and how to avoid those pitfalls? I'm looking forward to hearing Barb's take on that, because I'm sure she can school all of us. She's probably the most experienced veteran here tonight. But without further ado, I want to let Rory speak for a while about his thoughts on how was this launch of exclusive Silverline promotion in Memphis. I'd say we had the table covered. It was all Silverline prints, Silverline original art, Silverline comics, postcards. I even created some last-minute flyers for the Christmas special, which I hope you guys are going to Indiegogo and checking out. What was your take on the weekend? Pros and cons?
Oh, my gosh. Mostly pros. I can't think of too many cons. I thought it went so well that it blew me away. It was my first real, con sitting behind the table.
Right.
And that people seeing our artwork behind it, your beautiful cover here, drew quite some attention.
Thank you.
People were excited to see new comics coming out. They actually asked questions. They stopped. They walked around, came back. We had a good number of regulars that kept coming back to the table, asking more and more questions. And as the night went on, the numbers only grew. We sold some comics, sold some prints. People got autographs, genuinely interested. And like you said earlier, people were like, oh, can I buy that now? I was surprised at how many times that was asked. That was a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, it really was. I also noticed I had a banner, the one you see behind me, the Silver Blade banner, very large, 8 feet tall behind me. And even though it's all, those characters are only going to appear in the 6-page short Christmas story in the upcoming special, people were asking right away, how can I get that? When is that coming out? And so luckily I had giveaway flyers that had the Indiegogo URL on them. And I wondered, Barb, you always think ahead, being accountant minded and so on. When you guys go to a show, do you always prep with like giveaway flyers? I know there's usually postcards, But do you guys have giveaway stuff?
I have giveaway stuff. I have these the little I have bookmarks like this. I have the armbands, the Silverline armbands. I will often have candy on my
Nice.
table. Oh yeah, chocolate is like a sure thing, you know.
What kind of chocolate? I just want to know.
Hershey Kisses.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
that's a good one.
Perfect.
Yeah. So, and at the Florida convention, I was just down there. Roland gave me a couple of huge decks of the giveaway cards too.
Yes.
So the next show I'll be going to, I will be passing those out as well. So
We
yeah,
were
I always
lucky to
have
have.
giveaways.
We were happy to have a couple of stacks of those nice giveaway cards, and I handed off quite a few. Did you, Rory? Also.
Like the trading cards.
Yeah. Well, the
Oh,
postcards.
the postcards. Yes.
Yes.
I had some of the Christmas ones and the new ones. Those went out pretty well.
That's good. That's good. So
I also have a little sign that I made out of bright yellow paper stock, cardstock with
good.
it's like a word balloon, only it's the star shaped. Lots of like you put zip bam pow, that sort of the word in.
Oh,
and
yeah.
yeah, and I've got printed in there only available here, and then
That's good.
and I stick
That's
that
perfect.
stick that with my divinity stuff, so it makes
That's
it sound
perfect.
even more special.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Jeremy's sharing with us as he worked. That is so cool to see.
That is.
Art in progress. It's awesome. Love it. The important thing to take away, I think, is a physical giveaway, especially, I mean, whether you're doing a hard sell and you bring somebody to the table with a pitch, or they're just casually stop by and they look. For those who are wondering, one of my approaches, I know Roland just goes right into a hard pitch. Rory said that Scott goes into a hard pitch. A lot of times what I'll do, so they don't feel like, they're being carnival barked at, is I'll say, hey, take your time, browse through those prints. If you have any questions, let us know. These items are free. These items are priced as shown, etc. And so it sort of breaks the ice, and usually they'll start flipping through the print rack at that moment. Is that kind of how you do it, Barb, or how do you approach it?
I have a real hard time like snatching people out of the middle of the aisle and giving them a sales pitch. So I'll get them to look at me first, but I'll say something like "Hi" or "Oh my God, I love your T-shirt," and get them to turn around and look at me, make eye contact.
Right.
And then once I have them looking at me, then I'll say, "Hey, feel free to browse my stuff. Prices are marked." Something like that.
That's good.
I'll just do a soft sell. Come, please feel free to look through everything I've got.
That's good. I do that as well. And also it was nice to be able to answer specifically with this particular Christmas special, the details about, because they wanted to know. They said, well, what's this all about? I said, well, it's over 100 pages. It's more than 15 creators. Each one has offered, 6 pages of a Christmas themed story. But the way I pitched it was, guys, this is a sampler platter for Silverline. If you've never heard of us, or maybe you have, or maybe you've seen some of the art, or maybe you've visited before the website or heard the live streams, I said, this is your chance to see in print, all of what we have to offer. This is our stable.
It's our surf and turf.
Yeah, it's our surf and turf. And so, take a sample. Let us know what you think. So, it helped to have that, and it helped to have the URL on the flyers as well.
It's a good intro to Silverline.
What was that, Rory? Say again?
It's a good pitch. It's solid, and it's a good intro to Silverline.
It really is.
Something,
It really is. And so we also went into a little more detail, and we'd say, well, we've got action adventure, superhero, but we've also got action, thrillers. We've got, young adult. We've got comedy, horror, action horror, even children's, stuff. I even had an issue of Bea on the table. And I let them know very clearly that we don't do porn or politics. This is escapism, and that's what we're about. And I even referenced, old time Malibu in terms of if the person was of a certain age where they possibly could have come across a Malibu book. That sort of recognition is helpful as well. What about locally? Do you guys reach out? And I'll get to why I ask you this in a moment. I want to go to Aaron first because he's been too quiet, and I know he's working on something for Roland, but I want him to chime in here. Do you promote Silverline stuff at your local retailers, Aaron, or do they just look at you and go, we don't care?
Local retail? You mean like comic shops?
Yeah, local comic shops.
No, I do signings of my books when it's not. We're still pretty paranoid about COVID around here, so
okay.
I don't think they're still doing any signings. But when they do, I have a shop that does signings for like Halloween and holidays, and I will go sign there and sell my stuff there.
Okay.
I have not put any of the books in the comic shop or mine yet. I'm actually trying to finish my book before I actually attempt to do that. I want the book done before I attempt to put it in shops like that. So
that makes sense. We have a hello from Phil Leon. He says, "Hey, what is up, Silverline peeps? Shout out to you, Phil. How are you? We are enjoying ourselves. If you have any questions, please feel free to chime in. One of the things I try to do with the local retailers, I went by today because it was New Comic Wednesday, and I took some of the leftover material from the con and passed it out to them and just asked, do you guys mind putting this up? And one of the stores was a little, hesitant. The other one was right away welcoming to the idea and put up the Christmas special flyer on their front door behind the glass. And I was really glad to see that. And I also mentioned, when it comes out, would a signing be a possibility? And the manager's like, sure. He'd looked up my work, so he was open to that. Barb, have you contacted any of your local people? I mean, I know they know you by now, and you're a household name in the genre there, but do you go in and say, hey, we've got something new coming out. When I get some comps, would you be cool with me signing here? Or do they approach you?
I have approached a couple of the stores here, and one of them is Westfield Comics, which I'm sure most of you guys have heard about. They do a big online business, but they're based out of Madison here, and they didn't seem too interested. I have another smaller Graham Cracker Comics, and he willingly took my books and put them on the shelf. I haven't done any signings because of COVID, but Graham Cracker Comics put my stuff out, so I was happy with that.
That's awesome. Oh, they're usually, if you walk in and just present the idea gently, without any high pressure, they're usually pretty open. We have the inker that never sleeps. Tommy Florimonte says, "What's up, y'all? Is that Rory?" It is indeed, Tommy. And if you would care to join us, we can heckle you actually live on the stream. So bring it if you want to. It is good to see Rory, and we're hoping that he joins us as a regular from
far more
here on out. Now. Rory, what about you and your local? Now, you said you were sort of new to the con scene, so to speak, but I'm sure there are local stores where you are, and how many, and do you visit them, and how would they respond if you approach them about possibly signing a book?
So I just recently moved out to Columbus, Ohio, actually about an hour east of Columbus, and there are quite a few. I think I've tracked down about 23 within driving distance, and 2 of them were permanently closed. And this is when we were really pushing for Divinity and Steam Patriots when the Kickstarter was going. Right. So I visited all of them multiple times, just kind of pushing. I think maybe 1 or 2, so they would put it on the shelves. So the other ones I'll probably take a couple copies with me, go back and say, here, read this if you feel like selling it, we'd be honored. So
awesome.
Couple of bites, but a lot of customer base here. There's 3 that I go to regularly just to show face because they're on the route home to and from school. So it's not out of the way. So I figure
a lot of a lot of retailers seem real reluctant if you aren't in Diamond distributor catalog. You know, they have a tendency to turn their nose up, and Westfield is like that. Not saying that there aren't great people and everything, and I understand the reluctance.
Absolutely. When I was speaking to the manager today at Rogues Gallery, the name of the store that was very receptive. We have another store named Comic Ninja, and to be fair, their manager was not there, so I didn't get to talk to Joey. But Zach at Rogues Gallery was very open to it and said sure. And he, like I said, he was talking to me, and I said, look, we are working on getting in Diamond. He goes, that was going to be my next question. And I said, the CEO tells me it's going to be by summer of 2022. And I confirmed that today with Roland. So, you know, fingers crossed on that.
Yay.
I think that will go a long way to legitimizing us in the retailer's mind as far as regular output. These guys aren't just, you know, slinging it out here and there and then fall off the face of the earth. What about you, Aaron? The guys up there, they kind of take you seriously, right? Even though we're not in Diamond, they see your work.
Yeah. Strangely enough, I do. Since my biggest publishing was my kids' book, I actually did a lot of stuff with the local Barnes and Nobles more than my comic shops, because they would do school events and high schools would come, and then he would call me up and you know, have me go down there. But since COVID hit, everything's changed, and so I can't get into. They used to do story time and reading, and so it's one of those things, like some comic shops won't even touch me. There's one locally that they don't have the shelf space per se or whatever. That's the always. And then there's another one, Cosmic Monkey. But again, even when they do independent stuff, they shove it in the back of the store, which is kind of aggravating. Like they hide it like in this back room, in this corner, this back room. Like often it's like, okay, that's not really helping anyone. Thank you.
I would think if I owned a local comic book store, I would put local creators up front and really push it.
Yeah, and they shove it in the back, because I'm just like, okay. And you think with Portland being the indie comic hub of, you know, the United States, they would do that more, but they just don't. I think other stores do. There's one called Floating World in Portland that I've never been to that store, and I saw a picture of the inside, and I think they actually put it like a shelf in the forward, like in more towards the front and stuff. But we have like stores with like political stuff too. We have a store called Books with Pictures that is very politicized. So apparently if you don't do the correct story, you don't get in there. So I gave up on them too. So Cosmic Monkey is the only one I really deal with. We have one of our main ones is Things from Another World, but Things from Another World is basically owned by Dark Horse. Dark Horse started from there. Yes. So unless you're in Diamond or in Goods with Dark Horse, you're not getting in there. They're just not really putting your stuff on.
Roland shouts out, Coliseum of Comics does just that up front. That's excellent. What we should have is either make one for ourselves, or maybe, since we're really inside with Kablam Comics, have an actual, you know, local creator tab, you know, that fits exactly behind our comics, and just check out local creator, you know, Silverline, local creator. I think that would be cool. Because until we get into Diamond, it is going to be an uphill battle. It is a harder sell, but you know, that's what this show is about tonight, is just face to face, you know, pressing the flesh, as the politicians say, getting to know your local people and getting out there and getting involved. Just keep at it, Aaron. Just maybe when we get in Diamond, they'll wake up a little bit, you know.
I don't know. The thing with Godly, and this is 12 issues, so I was going to ask the store, and I know another one, Comic Cave. They're actually pretty good. They do a lot of independent stuff. He's more independent, putting up that they could put out an issue a month, and I want to try to maybe hit see if they would do for the boxes, like put my stuff in their boxes. I don't know. I'm going to talk to the stores when I just wanted the comic done because I know if it's not done, they get a little, why do I want to put this out there if I can't? But the fact that it's all done.
Yes.
But after it's done, I'll be promoting more of the graphic novel, the book, than the issues. The issues were never the main focus. They were just to start disseminating it into the world that people knew a little bit about it. It was really meant to be a book. That's the idea and stuff. So
when you go in, this is something I recommend creators do because it's really memorable, and I bet Barb does this. Don't just take printed comics. Take your portfolio if you're an artist, or an inker, who is an artist also. But take your portfolio in there, and they will stop and look at it, even if they're kind of resistant at first. They're like, "Whoa!" And then the other fellow here was enterprising enough to go down the rabbit hole and do some research on me and found me on Comic Vine, and you did this and you did that, and it's like, yeah. And I know that would work with you, Barb, as well. Did you have them stalk
most
you?
people, I just say Google my name and it comes up with 25,000 sites. So
That's good.
I'm gonna
Do you
bring a
ever take your
portfolio
physical portfolio in there to show them like your inks full size?
no, I haven't.
Okay. It blows them away. I mean, they're like, whoa, and they start through it.
Usually I just have to say stuff like I was on Impulse for 2.5 years. I did.
Well, that'll do it.
Yeah. And they're like, eh. So
I'm gonna make my own portfolio, and it's just gonna be 20 pages of stick figure drawings.
Yeah. No kidding. But in your case, Rory, the fact that you're co-creator of the book, and also you can discuss in depth what the book is about, I would just start rolling the content speech, man. I would just start talking about this is what it is, and it's Revolutionary War, steampunk. It's got realistic historical figures. You were doing a great job there, and I saw people just stop. They stopped, shifting on their feet and just listen to you.
Yeah,
it was
that
good.
Was fun. I mean, I was blown away that one couple came up. I don't know what they're East Coast Avengers, that they do reviews, and they bought a comic to do a review on. So I'm waiting for that guy's email.
Yeah, that will be awesome.
I would have picked it up, even if I didn't know you guys. I would have picked it up on the steampunk alone.
Yeah,
that's hugely popular.
Is it still popular, Barb? I'm hoping it is.
Yeah,
That's
is.
what I love.
Yeah.
I think it's very, very cool. The next thing we wanted to kind of touch base on in a little more depth is what Barb suggested. How do rookies, aspiring comic creators, but also newbies to the business, what are some of the pitfalls, mistakes that they make, and what should they look out for? Barb, talk to us.
Well, if you're going to be meeting, say, an editor, publisher, anybody who's got strings that they can pull for you at a convention, dress for it. Don't be dressed in your fursona or a cosplay or a Spawn shirt if you're going to be meeting with Marvel. I always dress neutrally when I'm at a convention, unless I'm specifically there promoting, say, Silverline. I'll wear my Silverline t-shirt. But if I'm going to be going to a convention looking for work, I will dress completely neutrally. There won't be any indication in my outfit on which way I lean in comics. I try to dress smartly and professionally, so they'll take me seriously. I don't take a huge portfolio because editors don't have the time to sift through everything back to your high school art class. They want to see 5, maybe 6 tops pieces of artwork. If it's pencils, they want to see a couple of splash pieces, and then the rest they want to see sequentials. Because people could do splash pieces till the cows come home, but if you can't do sequential artwork, you're no good to them. if you're an inker, you want to take half a dozen or less, probably 4 or 5, because when in an inker you have to have a before and an after, so that's more pages to look at. I usually take 5 of my best pieces, and I'll have a before copy and an after copy to show what I did with the pencils, and no more. They don't. They want to look through. They'll have an idea right off the bat if they're going to like you. It's no good packing another 20 pieces in there, because they're going to get the feel for it in the first few pages. So don't waste your time. All it does is piss them off. Be polite. If they criticize you, don't take it personally. Don't ever take it personally, and certainly don't get mad at them. You'll never have a chance after that. You need to grow a thick skin if you're going to be critiqued by people, because if you can't take the heat, you have no business being in the kitchen. You're going to get your work shredded one way, up and down, sideways, and you need to listen to what these people are saying, because they've been doing the business a lot longer than you have. And if you don't like what they're saying, well, that's fine. Throw out what you didn't like, but pick out those nuggets that they're telling you that are important, and listen to what they're saying. They're not being mean to you on purpose because they don't like you. They are critiquing you in order to tell you what you are doing wrong and why you don't have a job yet. The other thing that I would say is don't learn how to draw comics by looking at comics. You need to learn how to draw from real life before you can caricaturize it in comics. Once you do have a job, make your damn deadlines. Nobody is going to hire you if you can't make deadlines, unless you are super duper the top talent, and you aren't yet when you're first starting out. So you need to be very dependable. You need to hit those deadlines, and don't pull any of this. Oh, I just don't feel the art today. Don't pull any of that prima donna shit. You need to sit down and do the work. Turn it out, or you're not going to last long in the industry. You have to be dependable.
Yes, excellent advice for those aspiring and listening. That's some tough love from Barb, but all true and very wise. Yeah. So Rory, tell us a bit. You're fairly new to the business, and I think your story of how you became a part of the Silverline team might enlighten some aspiring rookies. Why don't you share with us how you got involved and joined this crazy people here?
Yeah, sure. So, over a decade, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and an empty wallet. So Scott and I were stationed together. We were both active duty Coast Guard. We were stationed together in Buffalo, and our senses of humor, personality, I don't know, our brain wavelengths are just so in sync that we don't even remember who came up with this idea anymore. It was just such a natural, organic, like we were probably at work and should have been working, but we were having too much fun with it that it just kind of overflowed out of our brains and met on the floor. But we started putting it together, and we're like, well, we started writing this novel, and it mostly was finished. And we had gotten in league with a publisher and artist, and he just kind of went too big, too fast, and things fell through. So he was kind enough to give us the title back, and went through a couple other publishers and artists, same thing, and it hit us that steampunk is such a visual genre. We would be doing ourselves and everybody else a disservice not making a graphic novel or comics out of it. So went through a couple artists, finally got one we liked, got our first issue out there, and Scott had finished the book when he was going to Full Sail University where Roland teaches. And finished the book, or finished the comic storyboard. I'm not sure what the project was. And Roland was kind enough to open the doors of open the back door of Silverline and let us sneak in and start putzing around back here, and met all of you lovely people who've been nothing but supportive. It has been it's the most professional, most family-like atmosphere. like being in the military is like being part of family. That's the same feel at Silverline. Everybody's supportive. Everybody's got kind words, constructive criticism, not criticism, life experience that Barb can give us.
Oh yeah. Well, that's good to hear. That's really good to hear.
Amazing all around.
We like getting new talent, and especially people who are intelligent and committed. And you and Scott certainly fit that bill, and then the material is so good. I remember first hearing about it, and Scott approached me about doing a cover, and I was like, yeah, I've got to do this. It was just too cool. The content was too cool. I look forward to more. By the way, I'm sure you guys are working on 2 and 3 and 4. And, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
We got plenty of information to pull from. I mean, the historical timeline's already there. We're just kind of tweaking it with our characters a bit. It was funny. When we were pushing it for the Kickstarter, one of the podcast / YouTube channels we did an interview with, the gentleman who was founder of the day, he said, I had this idea years ago, the American Revolution, but steampunk. And I started writing it, and then I said, nah, that'll never sell. But here I am now interviewing you guys.
It is odd sometimes how a synchronicity rears its ugly head, and people have said to me, I thought of that, but if you don't believe in it enough to push it and go all the way with it,
right?
Somebody else is gonna. If you don't do it, somebody's gonna do it.
Yeah.
It might as well be you. Like it might as well be Aaron. I mean, if somebody was going to do alien godlike beings destroying each other, right? So might as well be you. So how did you get involved with Silverline? For those who might be interested, and how you got it? How'd they let you in the door?
Me? That was a convoluted story.
That's what we're here for, my friend.
Get a lockpick, and a
It was 2000. Was it 2019? Roland's listening. He might know. It was 18 or 19. I think it was 2019, or maybe was it 2020? Was it during the pandemic? Anyway, I found him on. I heard somebody in an interview was listening to a comic interview with some gentleman, and they mentioned Roland Mann. I don't know if they knew him or knew him from before. I'm like, oh, I remember that guy. So I looked him up on Facebook and found him, and he was doing Silverline, but he was promoting he wasn't promoting Fire Russia at that time. Well, I said, hey, do you remember me? I did work for you long ago, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, yeah, I remember. And then we figured out that I did Fire Rush 20 years ago. And that's when he basically said, oh, yeah, we're doing that comic, promoting Fire Rush, our new comic. And I thought they had gotten another artist to do it. It had been 20 years. But he was actually pitching my artwork. But he had another artist attached to it because I didn't put my name on the art. And then we finally, I think, going back and forth, finally figured out it was my work, not the other gentleman's work. And then he was like, oh yeah, okay, we'll bring you on. And since I technically was pitching my stuff, he's like, well, do you want to join the team? I'm like, yeah, I guess. That's good. But yeah, it's like, yeah, sure, all right. No, but that's why not? But yeah, that's how I got in. So he was actually promoting me before I even came on. I was just that amazing.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You were familiar with, obviously, Malibu. You knew the whole Malibu.
Yeah. Because I used to read Image and then Malibu, going through that, the publisher and stuff. Yeah, right. I used to read Image. I think I did read some. I think I read some of Prime and some of the superhero stuff. Again, I'm one of those guys, like I've talked many a time. I'm less superhero, more like weird sci-fi underground comics.
Sci-fi.
Yeah.
We got plenty of those. Yeah.
So
that's very, very cool. Very cool. So what did you do wrong? Let's say, have you ever had an experience where you're maybe showing your work and you made a mistake and you learned from it?
Showing to an editor or just to the public?
To an editor, maybe you didn't get the gig, or maybe they were really harsh on the portfolio, or this helps people to understand that it's not just them getting hammered by the
Strange enough, I was one of those weird people that I never had the super huge desire to go work for another company. So I just basically drew my own stuff and put out my own comics, even ever since. And I realized when I would draw other people's stuff, sometimes I get really bored. It just wouldn't, I
That's
think
interesting.
the only thing I did was for Roland was that Fire Rush stuff. After that, I just did my own books and own comics, and then I got into motion graphics because the guy there wanted me to do comics, and I started doing storyboarding, and then asset illustration for motion graphics, animation, stuff of that nature. But I never wanted to draw other people's ideas. I never wanted to work for Marvel and DC. I still don't have any. I've never had a desire to work for them or do anything for the big
Interesting.
two. I just want to do my own stuff. I wanted to see my own book put on the shelf. I didn't want to see a book done by other people. Yeah, so I just continuously. That's why I have so many pages of, but almost all. And I kind of reluctant to work with other people because they usually have these visions of my own stuff. Like I work with other people and their own other stories, but for my stories and stuff, I'm like, no, usually it's me. But yeah, I was one of those weird guys. Like I never like I want to draw like Batman or Spy. No, never did. I didn't even really draw
Wow, that's
superheroes
interesting.
when I was a kid. I never drew superheroes. I drew anthropomorphic animals starting out, and then I really got into Appleseed and drew mechs and robots and all that, and
Yeah, that's cool.
sci-fi stuff. But yeah, I never, even as a kid, I never really drew super. I remember as a kid, my first comic I started drawing, like in junior high, was a superhero book, but they're anthropomorphic rats, and they were supposed to be, like from a lab, like The Secret of Nim, and they were supposed to be
Right.
rat size.
Cool.
So the
That's
idea
cool.
was that they're having these adventures, but at like a microscopic level.
Oh,
So
that's cool.
at rat size, that was the idea. And
And
I
then
started
Rick
because
and
I
Morty
thought like,
stole it
would
from
it be
you.
cool like if there was some like superhero battle outside your window, like just like in your yard outside your window, and that's a battlefield. That was the idea. Those are the only superhero things I did, and even they were very much punk rock inspired, less superhero, more punk rock,
Got it.
sci-fi
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I never. That was weird, but yeah, I never had that. My friends kind of did, but I drew with a lot of friends. We just like making up our own stuff, and that was the thrill for me was making it my own work. So it's hard to ask, like, did you make any mistakes? I think I made more mistakes in learning how to do storytelling to make my art, like learn how to tell a story, learn how to get my art to be able to see it. People sometimes have a hard time seeing my art because I'm still learning. But as far as like taking it to an editor making mistakes, no, not really. I mean, I've been through enough editors. I went through a bunch of editors at San Diego, but they just didn't like my stuff. So I don't know if I made a mistake on my part. It just wasn't their thing. So I'm
It's
like,
been
okay.
harder
Right.
and harder to pin down an editor at conventions these days. Now
Yeah.
you have to sign up on a sign up sheet and give your cell phone number, and
Yeah.
then they'll go through it and leave a portfolio with them, copies in a manila envelope. And if they like your portfolio, then they'll call you on your cell phone and set up an interview time at the convention. I don't know where the editors are hiding.
Like they'll meet at
top
like
secret.
a cafe or so. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I was never.
Meet in warehouse number 6.
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of
The
friends.
secret password is.
Yeah.
Well,
When I
yeah,
was a
the thing
kid-
to do back in the day was in San Diego. Barb, you remember this? It was you knew you were networking correctly when you got invited to the bar at the Hyatt.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
after
Oh, was
after
that
hours.
the one you were supposed to go to?
Yeah. If you got invited to the bar at the Hyatt and you had drinks with the right editors, then you'd get a call back. And I almost always got a call back. Jeremy, what about you, my friend? Tell us the story of how you got in with Silverline.
Well, when I graduated from SCAD back in 2013, about a month or so afterwards, I saw a posting on Facebook that Roland made looking to get the comic book Cray recolorized. Okay. Now, that means I've been working on it for almost like 11 years now. What happened is, like, when I first started, this was actually before he even started the whole Silverline thing to begin with. The initial thing was, I have this job for you. The pay is all right, but honestly, if you get other paying work, you can prioritize that. You'll just long to show progress on this, as you go along.
Sure.
So basically that's now about 10 years later that I finally finished it up as a result.
Awesome. Very awesome. So that it was really just you were approached pretty much.
I found most of the jobs I've ever found were either through Facebook. I found one through Reddit, Twitter. In fact, the other publisher I do a lot of work for, American Mythology, I got connected through the main editor there through Facebook as well. And I'm still doing work for them at this point too.
Okay.
Most times at conventions frustrate me to. This is really frustrating me because I'm one of those weirdos where I want criticism. I want critiques of my work. I never get it. I go to a convention. I met a number of editors, and they very rarely have anything to say in regards to what to change. They'll say, "Looks great." I would print this if I had it. Like I might get the one nitpick here and there. Say, if I had a nitpick, maybe put a gradation in your sky, or maybe make your cloud a tiny bit wider. That's about most critiques I've ever gotten. And as a result, I never really got anything to work off of. And I always have to sort of, I don't want to say fight, but sort of really pressure them to please tell me more of the fix. If you say it's print ready, then why am I not getting a job as a result?
Right.
I don't know. I wish I could help you though.
Well, you were just recently at a pretty big con, weren't you, at New York City?
Yes. Oh, you talking about New York Comic Con?
Yeah.
Okay, no, I thought about the one before I went to. New York Comic Con, yes. And there was very little publishers there.
Okay.
There's only like one publisher there, Source Point. They were very nice. They were very friendly. The editor there I met with, I think it was Jacob, he was very willing to meet with and talk with the artist. So that was a very good experience there. But the most publishers like Archie, Marvel, DC, IDW, Dark Horse, none of them were there.
Okay. Interesting.
Did
you have leave?
Sorry?
Did you have leave behind, physical leave behind?
Oh, yes. Okay. When I go through my portfolio, since I do a lot of coloring work, my portfolio is always this. I always put together like a binder. It's like one of those binders with the inserts. And what I do is I put the coloring. I basically print out the original black and white page that I colored, and I print out the colored version so that's what they can see the before and after, and see what work has been done. A lot of times I'll do like color holds, or I'll maybe even fix on the artwork. So I want them to see that process, that I'm doing between the two pages. And another also good thing also is on each page, in addition to each page, I also put my contact information. I'll write down the initial artist who drew out the page, so they know whose artwork I'm working over.
Yep.
I'll make sure to include a little citation page in the front as well, where I basically do like a whole MLA citation, of each page where they come from. I put the business card, in the sleeve as well. Some years I've even created little mini comics that basically just my portfolio in mini comic form.
That's brilliant. That's a brilliant way to package and brand yourself. Did you know to do this, or find that information, or you were advised?
That's the way I've always done it too.
What?
That's the way I've always done it too.
I mean, honestly, I don't think anyone really told me. It just made sense to do it that way.
Yeah,
that's smart.
Because I know artists like being credited for their work, and a lot of times I go to conventions, they'll ask me, "Oh, who drew this page?" If I got the page from online somewhere, the sample I want, sometimes I don't remember. So it came to me like, okay, you know what? I want to make sure I credit these people, so I'll go ahead and make sure that I can answer their questions when they ask me at the convention thing.
Excellent.
I've also got these weird, and also that came back because there's like when I was on DeviantArt, I post the coloring samples there, and people will start commenting not on the coloring work, but on the the inking or the penciling. I even wrote the title, coloring work only. And then at some point I got to the point where I basically wrote no caps. I did not draw this. I don't take credit for the pencil inking. I just did the coloring. They still will only comment on the other stuff. So that's why I try to make it as clear as possible when I show my work what I did, so they know what to look at and what to examine.
Excellent. For those of you aspiring colorists out there, listen carefully. Jeremy's approach is very comprehensive and obviously very effective, because he's gotten regular work. Also because he's talented and gifted with what he does as well. What would you tell if an aspiring colorist came to you and said, Well, Jeremy, I really want to color comics. What's the first? What should I study? What should I do? Should I look at comics? Should I look at film? Should I look at photography? What's your advice to an aspiring colorist?
Well, I would say basically, since comics have a variety of styles and such, find the specific form or style that interests you the most. I've always liked I've always been a fan of anime, cartoons, and so forth. So when I was starting, I would read a bunch of comics. I looked at those old Viz prints they did with the colorized version of the manga, which looked horrible, honestly. But it's a way to study how other colors would approach what I like. So as a result, I was able to create a nice associated look for a lot of my comic work, and also find artists who you enjoy reading, who stand out to you the most, and basically copy them. I guess is the best way to start out with. Another interesting thing you can do also is a lot of artists will post not pages, but they'll post like little sketches, like quick 5-minute sketches they'll do, on their Twitter. They'll just download those, quickly color it in, and share it back. The majority of the time, a lot of people love seeing their work colorized like that.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah, that's very smart.
Around the October, you have Inktober. You see tons of ink work being shared through various artists. So just find artists you like, download their work, color it, put it back online, make sure to tag them. And that usually gets you some nice responses.
It's a brilliant idea.
That's an excellent idea. We have a comment. Phil Leon says, examine a lot of how light and shadow play off each other and study color theory. Would you say that's good advice? I would.
Oh, yes. I honestly, I started not even doing, because I do a lot of digital work, I started with actual paints and so forth. So the basic, it's good to get the basic understanding of how the coloring works and build off of there. So basically a good way to start, again, it's like through basic, paints, crayons, color pencils, basic material like that. And as you do that, you're able to study the various, because one second, I think I might have the book on my shelf, but there's a bunch of books you can get. I forgot the name of it is, but there's one book particularly that's used in visual effects for movies and such. I basically have the bust heads that show you the angles from the angle of the light from each side of the head. So there's various books like that you can get. And again, don't focus on just comics because they have this type of lighting stuff for other mediums.
That's good advice too. I do that as well, even for illustration and drawing. But one last thing for the colorist, is it important when a colorist is showing their portfolio to have content themed color palettes? For example, you have a few pages from a superhero action adventure, a few pages of a film noir style thriller, a few pages of a horror story. Obviously those are going to be colored differently. Do you group those genres, or do you just have it any way you want, just all the way through?
I usually, whenever I go to a convention, I'll see which publishers are doing portfolio reviews. I'll see which editors there. Then I'll target the portfolio to those specific publishers and editors. I might throw in a couple other random ones that are not related, but the majority of the portfolio I'll try to target to that publisher. Like if we're going for let's say DC, for example, putting in like a Harvey comic, like a Casper page for that would not be good.
Yeah, correct.
But if you're going for something like IDW or Boom, it might work out since they do allow more of those kid-focused stuff.
Good call. Excellent.
And I will say there are some editors who do have color preferences. I know there was this one editor I kept seeing on Twitter post, send me samples of your coloring work we're looking to hire, and basically you'd make sure to note, I want to see majority of purple in all the samples.
Okay.
So basically, wants to see send in pages that are basically all color schemed around purple.
He liked the color purple.
Yes, he did.
You like the color purple?
I saw him tweet that
Purple
about
rain.
5 times throughout a year once. I don't know if it's the same project or not, but it does seem like he liked color purple.
Well, I'm just curious also, are superhero palettes, is that the most generic palette, or does that vary as well? Because now there are just so many different takes, whether deconstructed story or a classic Superman style epic action adventure, or do you have
you have the like DC and Marvel both have kids lines of comics. You know, DC has the animated series comic line, but they also have the regular Batman comic line, two completely different styles.
Right.
And on the webtoons, you know, Marvel has that one with the cat now as well, which is much different than what they've normally done as two.
Right. Well, that's very helpful. I hope you guys are.
So you also run into the issue where publishers have different divisions for the different groups. Like I think it was Marvel has, you know, the regular publishing line. Then they have an editor just for the kids line. Then they have an editor for basically each line has a different editor. So if you happen to meet the wrong editor with your work, this happened to me where I was trying to show my work. So I got to be in touch with one of the people there. I showed it to them. You know, they didn't like it. They want to say more realistic. But the thing is, all my work was geared towards the kids line, and they kept giving me samples to work on using the more mature line, because apparently the two departments back at least then didn't quite communicate with one another. So you had to apply for the other departments separately.
Right. That's important. Barb, you mentioned this before as well. Target for the right edit. It's good to do research before you go to a show, because we are talking about face-to-face impact here today.
Mhm.
What about, like, did you do that? Did you just like, okay, this is what I've done? Or did you shuffle the portfolio based on which editor you were about to go see?
I shuffled it slightly. I always had I had a tendency more towards using popular pencilers that I inked over, because they were instantly recognizable. But say I went to a publisher that I did know did children's comics, I would throw in something from Married with Children, which is a very caricaturized book, or Nickelodeon's Angry Beavers. I would throw in some ink samples from that, especially Nickelodeon's stuff, because that showed that I'd done animation work as well. So it depended. I would switch it up a little bit, but most of my samples were more to show what I could do over more well-known pencilers than specifically designed just for Marvel or just for DC.
That's interesting. It's good to focus on the material that you want to work on, but then provide alternate samples to show that you have range as well.
Right.
There's another thing too I mentioned that editors like seeing as well is not just the crunch art specifically, but a variety in the environment. You know, they like seeing that you can color or draw or whatever based on, you know, basically different environments. You know, underwater, they love seeing. You know, they love seeing nighttime scenes. You know, basically, if you just have a basic daytime scene, that's okay. But they like seeing more variety. You know, in the time, basically, sure you know how to do passage of time and so forth.
Right.
Yes.
Water. How you do water? How you do fire?
Yeah.
Sunsets.
Right.
Dark of night. Stuff like that. In the
Reflected
middle of a city.
light, moonlight, sunlight.
Cityscape, naturescape, stuff like that. Another thing about inking inking is I always tried to make each one of my samples over a different person. It's not going to do me any good to do 5 samples over one penciler. You know, you want to give as broad a range of your skills as possible. So I would pick somebody that was maybe penciled in a Jim Lee style, somebody who penciled in a film noir style, somebody who penciled real simplistic, straightforward. I would pick a wide range of styles, and I would ink those up.
So what you aspiring folks out there, artists and colorists and inkers, I hope you're listening carefully. 5 pages. They want to make sure that you can draw people in plain clothes as well as spandex. They want to see a variation of camera angles. You need to be able to do an establishing shot, medium shots, close-up shots, exteriors, interiors, interesting angles, not just flat scenes, but, you know, worm's eye view, bird's eye view when necessary. to show that you can do some interesting perspectives. It helps if those special, unique angles can help to move the story forward as well. Scott McCloud's How to Draw Comics and so on, all those how-to books are so easily available now online, and you can find out most of this online. But I tell pencilers, who come up to me, what should I show? And if you're aspiring, you want to work on in a Silverline book, for example, what Roland is going to want to see is he wants to see that you can tell a story in 5 pages. He wants to see consistency in the characters. Again, the ability to draw plain clothes as well as spandex superhero, if that's your genre. Lighting, try to do some things with some interesting lighting. Camera work. It's quite there are quite a lot of boxes to check to make for an interesting cinematic approach. And people have a style, and some people don't worry about those things that I just described, and that's fine too. But I'm just throwing out there what I was encouraged to do as a penciler, and it did help me get work. So if you're aspiring out there, it helps to do those things. Also, if you have friends who are aspiring inkers and aspiring colorists, or if you are yourself, show your work in all its stages, as Jeremy and Barb were mentioning, the before and after. That way, the editor, in this case Roland, can see, how things look before you inked it, how things look before you colored it. Regrettably, we don't have a letterer on tonight.
I know. You made a really good. You made a really, really good point earlier that I'd like to revisit.
Okay,
is that
please do.
When you think about doing superhero comics, you're all into doing the spandex and the muscles.
Sure.
But like you said, you have to know how to do cloth as well. So Batman is at a ball, or as Bruce Wayne, and everybody's wearing flowing ball gowns. Can you draw convincing looking draping dresses? So it's not all about the muscles. It's also about how cloth flows and sits, the folds in a suit, a 3-piece suit, something like that. So you also don't just focus on muscles.
That's a good point. One of the things, before the advent of the internet, I know a lot of people are going to go, there was a before? What? Yes, kids, there was a before the internet, and the reference stacks of magazines and books that we had was pretty impressive. I had everything from weightlifting guides for the guys and the superheroes to
still do,
Macy's catalogs, J. Crew catalogs, Vogue. Learning how to draw glamorous ladies in their high fashion. I didn't know anything about fashion, so I just go to the store and get magazines and figure it all out. There you go.
Yeah.
See, I mean, anatomy books. Now we can find all that stuff online. It's a lot referenced. Very nice.
A huge library that is now obsolete.
Absolutely, exactly. But do you remember getting clothing catalogs that you order and you're like, oh, I got to keep this because I'm going to have to draw, some of the supporting characters are going to be wearing some of these clothes at a cocktail party in this scene. So I need to know what a woman wears.
Well, my husband was like, why do you have a Playboy?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Can I borrow it?
Yeah, don't worry, honey. I'm not batting for the other side here. I'm doing research.
Without skipping a beat, Barbara said because of the articles.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, if I can add something for the color side for the physical copy stuff, if you want to be really good at coloring,
yes,
get this.
What is it?
It's a color index book with every single color combination you can think of.
Wow.
Oh, brilliant.
So basically all you do is plug into Photoshop the codes and you got the color.
That's cool.
Oh, fantastic.
That's absolutely
great advice, all you aspiring colorists out there. Listen to Jeremy, words of wisdom. Now, Rory, we're going to come to you, segueing from words of wisdom there, and talk to us about presenting a concept in written form, which
that's
to me
harder.
is the most challenging thing to do in this business is to sell your concept when you're a writer. because really you've only got a few minutes before the person's eyes glaze over, and you really have to capture their attention. What have you found works? What doesn't work? Help us out.
Oh, we have Brent. Oh, perfect.
Brent, welcome, my friend.
Oh, speaking of,
The well-known Brent Larson, creator of Kalis and Cape Town and other fantastic concepts for Silverline. We are covering the not only the sort of face-to-face sales challenges for those aspiring to get into this business. What would they show to Roland if they wanted to do colors, if they wanted to do inks, if they wanted to do pencils, all of the above, or if they wanted to be a writer? And we're talking about the how to avoid pitfalls and mistakes for these rookie folks who want to get into this business. So I'm going to come back to you, but Rory was about to share the challenges of how to present an effective pitch.
Yeah, and that's I think is harder than art any day.
I think so too. Go right ahead, Rory. Enlighten us, my friend.
Oh boy! All right, let's keep the bar low. Let's start low. Nothing too fancy here.
All right.
My brain kind of works like an accordion, where I have this nugget of a cool idea, and then I have to expand on it to give it content while still, making a beautiful harmony. But then you got to squeeze it back down into a pitch, right? The elevator pitch is the usual, what can you get to me in 30 seconds? And so, like, we were literally in the elevator when you had brought that up. Like, it's an American steampunk revolution. If the American Revolution was steampunk, like, all right. It's this balance between how much information do you give somebody and how little do you give them to let their imagination fill in the gaps. Are they going to think of what they want to think of? Are they going to see in their mind what they're going to see? And then when they see your product, are they going to be like, oh yeah, I'm affirmed in thinking that, or like, wow, this is even better than I thought? Or is it going to be, oh no, this is crap, forget this? But it's interesting to have all these grand ideas, plot them out, write them out, connect them, and then just distill it down into the bare essential of it.
So if it's that's the mechanical structure approach, but do you often use the tried and true? Okay, picture this: it's blank meets blank with blank. Like, do you draw from existing genre to help the person get into that world, or do you avoid that altogether and just go, no, here's what it is?
Little column A, little column B. I like to think that what Scott and I have put together is unique. Obviously, people have had the idea before. I think it depends on who your audience is. If somebody comes up to you and says, oh, I love history, what is this about? I know to tailor my sell. If somebody says, oh, steampunk, I love steampunk, oh, then you're going to love this. And then we're trying to get the crossover audience as much as possible. You could just draw from all of that. And then begins the balance of, do you give them what they want, or is it your baby and you got to sell your baby?
Yeah, good point. Tailoring it to the audience is very important. What if you were to walk into one of your retail stores? These people are often jaded and apathetic, and sometimes completely disconnected from what you're saying. What would you say to one of these managers of the retail stores? Hey, I've got this book. I mean, how would you pitch it to them? Steam Patriots, for example.
I'd say, do you already carry anything historical or steampunk? Are you looking to broaden your genres, broaden your audience? It's something new, something different that might sell to a niche audience, but might grow into something huge. Do you yourself like steampunk? Most people do. Or whether they know it or not. I've never met somebody who says, ugh, I hate steampunk. It's usually, oh, I love it, or I don't know what it is.
Good point. So do a little research, get that person talking first, and then you can fill in the blanks. Brilliant.
Yeah. If I can ask questions, not leading questions, but the more information I can get out of somebody, the more I know I can sell something.
Yeah, got it. Sell me this pen.
Do you have a pen?
So, Brent, you arrived just in time to enlighten us, being the seasoned veteran writer that you are.
Throw him to the wolves. Give him the hard ones.
I know, right? How do you pitch cold, and then how would you pitch at at a con, a fan is browsing the table, and he picks up Kalis and he says, what's this about? And, how do you go about pitching something to them like that?
I might just say a lot of what Rory already said. Which, Rory, you're looking great. It looks like you've gained like 5 pounds just on your face. So awesome.
As long as I can beat you, that's all I cared about.
I think the thing that I try to lean towards is a hook that's bare minimum, but it's intriguing enough for them to go, oh, okay, I was about to walk away, but I'll stay. Tell me slightly more. So Kalis is the story about astronauts. They go to a rift in space. They fall into Earth. They're invulnerable. There's weird guys trying to, stop him. There's all these conspiracies, and they're gone. Oh, whoa, where'd they go? Well, I don't know if they were that interested to begin with. So I think what I started with was it's about a guy who is sent by the CIA into space. Dead stop. And if they're not interested, well, then I don't know what else I can do for them. We're probably just here for the free Black Silverline band. So, okay, cool. Hey, I'm glad you got what you came for. But if they want a little more, then I'll start to give a few more details. And something that I think might help too is you kind of have to pitch it to yourself also. When I started thinking through Kalis, certain images came to mind. One of them was this one, which ended up being the splash page for the first issue, which was Scott's lunar lander coming back to Earth on fire, and it blows up in the atmosphere. I was like, that is so cool. I would love to write a comic that has that image. Okay. So in a way, I'm selling it to myself, which means hopefully someone else is going to think it's interesting too. So like the 4th issue, this is one of the cool things about me as a rookie comic book writer is I'm seeing things happen for the first time. Whereas you guys, this is Tuesday for you, but like the 4th issue has a double spread of what Anaheim Stadium looks like after a bomb went off and people have had to live there for 4 days without food and water. And I'm like, oh man, I would love to show everyone to this. And that makes me more excited about it myself, which makes me want to share it more with someone else too. So that's a lot of probably what I do. And
would you say write for an audience of one, even if it's yourself?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you're writing something that you're not really interested in, well, you're already on the loser end of that equation. Yeah, so don't ever do that. But if you think it's really cool, find a way to ease into it. Don't give it all at once because then people get nervous. I'm glad this person thinks their stuff's really cool. Meanwhile, I don't know why I'm here, So ease into it, give little tidbits. If they're more interested, give them a little more. Just build on that.
That's good. That's real good advice. Expand on that a little bit, Rory. When you talk to people about Steam Patriots, let's say they're interested, but they're about to walk away. What's that hook that Brent was talking about? What's the hook that you throw out that brings them back? Is it the historical figures? Is it, alternate history? What do you throw out that usually brings them back?
Yeah, it's usually it's historically accurate. And they're like, I don't know if they're lightning
history.
You haven't lived until you've seen the First Continental Congress in a comic book.
Yeah, right.
30 pages of real debate.
Right. It's 1791, and they're debating about you see their eyes glaze. They're like, "Am I in history class?"
Yep.
Yeah, not everybody liked history, but I loved history. But
right.
Yeah, I did too.
Well, specifically with Steam Patriots, it's fun to bring up that the technology, like we're just advancing technology a little more quickly. The steampunkish technology already existed. Like Gatling guns, you don't think of until the Civil War, but there was a patent for them in the 1700s in England. They were just too expensive to mass produce, so they were there. We're just using them, or combining technologies. Like spoiler alert, at the end we win the war when the French show up, but those are ships. But when you think steampunk, you think airship. Like, okay,
You could always like, hey,
Hot.
do you like exploding covered wagons?
yeah. Do you like fife and drum? Is it on your playlist? Yeah. Bagpipes, me too. But lighter than air travel was being experimented with too. So we could put those together, and you have your airships.
That's excellent. That's excellent. You
So
should also
look at
throw in,
women
we were talking about this a little bit at the con this weekend. You should also throw in the whole Jules Verne idea, the whole 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which to me is steampunk also.
Oh yeah, they're the grandfathers of steampunk.
Doug McClure.
Yeah. And, are we going to see perhaps maybe submarines or anything? Like, I'm just throwing it
If
out
it's up to me, yeah, I might have to fight Scott for it. Hold him down.
Yeah.
Hold him down till he squeals. Yeah, no, I think it's absolutely worth having. And I've said it before. We have enough content to go through, Revolutionary War, Civil War, Barbary Wars, all the fun stuff. And just because submarines were used in the Civil War, we can absolutely use them. But we can advance that technology a little bit too. I mean,
oh yes,
other cultures have had subnautical, contraptions as well. Even if it's just, a hose from the surface, we can build on that.
Oh yeah,
The diving bell.
And I always think of
Diving
China
bell.
Quest.
That's been around for a long time. The diving bell.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
I was thinking China Quest breathing through the reed.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I know, I love that, right? So Brent, another thing we covered a little bit earlier before you arrived was the face-to-face pitch to, let's say in your case, I guess, because you're new to comics, but when you're trying to sell a professional who's going to give you the gig, so to speak, like in our business, it would be an editor. When you're pitching to the people who give you a gig, what's the most important and salient point that you have to get across? Is it the commercial side? Is it the content? Do you try to roll all that into one? Educate us a little bit about pitching to a pro.
I will tell you what I know, and I don't know if pros would agree with me or not. I've pitched to some, and I've had some pitch to me. And the thing that I notice is the intriguing nature of the idea is what's going to make me listen to the entirety of the pitch. I've heard pitches where, and I was alluding to this just a little while ago, how people feel like they need to get everything about their idea out on the table, as if they don't, then it won't make sense. That's not true. You just need the core of your idea, and it needs to be intriguing enough so for you or whoever it is you're pitching to want to keep listening. And if they need more details, then they'll ask you, and you can deliver those.
I had somebody one time tell me that if you can't fit it into 2 sentences, then you're doing too much.
Exactly. In film parlance, it's called a log line. You have to tell who the protagonist is, who's the antagonist, what's basically the nature of the quest, and how it ends. Some people disagree on if you need to say how it ends in the log line. So like Star Wars is a kid on a backwater planet has to help a rogue rescue a princess from an intergalactic empire.
It's a space western.
Yeah. And
I can train with guns. Fight for guns.
Yeah. I mean, if you start throwing in too much stuff, the droids, the Death Star, then people start going, okay, and it starts to get laborious. And the problem is, Star Wars is never laborious when you see it, but it hasn't been made yet. So basically what you're doing is you're describing a movie in a way that no one's ever really going to appreciate unless you make it very succinct and suggest that there's more if they want to hear it. So
Quick question, and this really, I've heard both sides of this debate in terms of do you go with proper names, or do you go with their function in the story? For example, I noticed in your Star Wars description, which is excellent, by the way, kid on a backwater planet, you didn't say Luke Skywalker, right? Because then if you start doing the proper name thing, again, it gets jumbled. It's TMI. It's too much information.
Yeah, strangely. And one thing too, and some people might disagree with me on this, but if someone starts giving me details like his name is Luke Skywalker, my first thought is, I don't need to know that. I don't care what his name is.
Right.
But if you give me the idea in a way that's intriguing, I might ask his name later on, because then, and if you come up and say, yeah, his name's Luke Skywalker, well, that means you know your idea backwards and forwards, which is in itself something that the executive or the editor wants to know. They want to know that this isn't just some idea that you had while you were sitting on the pod and you're just happy to share it because, hey, man, I'm just here for the free food. Okay, that's not going to get you anywhere. Right. They want to know that you are serious about what you're talking about, but not just serious, but smart about it. And that's why you want to have that succinct pitch that you're ready to build on if they want to hear it. So.
That holding back of detail also puts that, lets their imagination fill in, and it gives you that everyman status of your protagonist.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting how that's reflected in visual art as well. I tell aspiring pencilers, don't feel like you have to fill up every square inch of the panel with information. In fact, it's healthier and more pleasant to the eye to leave some negative space. And even in figures, you don't really have to draw the whole figure. There's this feeling for aspiring creators, and you guys who want to be pencilers, I really want you to listen to this. Believe me, trust me on this. This is real. You feel like you have to draw every buckle, every zipper, every belt, every technical item on a costume, every gun, every detail of the face, every hair. No, please don't. Please don't do that. It's not necessary. In fact, it's better to use what I call the tip of the iceberg approach. You focus your detail on one part and let the other part be an outline, because again, this allows two things. It allows the eye to rest. Number two, it allows the imagination of the viewer to fill in the rest so they feel like they're participating in the art, which brings them into the art. If they feel like they're part of the art, they're going to follow it. Now, Barbara, being in the business longer than I have been, would say, well, Dean, that's not always true, because look at all these people who do, they do fill in every single detail of the whole thing. And there are successful people who do that. I'm talking about if you really want to get the attention of an editor,
For a minute, I thought it was like, but those people suck.
It's like a crossword puzzle. I mean, who wants to look at wallpaper? I don't want to look at wallpaper. I don't want to look at a mosaic where every little square is done. I mean, that's fine for fine art, but you're storytelling here. The other thing is the editor's going to go, can this kid knock this out with this much detail on a monthly basis?
There's a motorcycle. I'm not putting every gear into that motorcycle. Trust me.
No, you don't need to.
It kind of looks like a machine-y type thing in there.
And I would tell people when they're drawing cars, but that's another thing, by the way, you have to be able to draw vehicles. You have to be able to draw technology. Literally, the penciler's job is, I tell them, you got to be able to draw everything. And if you can't draw it convincingly, practice until you can. I had Neil Adams review my portfolio. And you want to talk about the toughest coach whoever
Oh, yeah.
coached me. That was him. He ripped it apart. But what I did was I went back and I practiced harder drawing from reference, and it made my fantasy and surrealism look better because it had a better foundation. And I had spent too much time learning how to draw from comics instead of learning how to draw from reality. You're going to get an exaggerated, caricatured view of what you're drawing naturally, based on the fact that it's being processed through your own particular individual human brain. So people go, well, it's not my style. It's going to look photographed. No, it's not. Trust me. Just naturally, your style is going to come through on its own. So don't worry about your style. Your style is going to happen. It's not going to be like something if you calculate a style, that may not be a good thing. It's better just to draw if you're in the realism school. Now I'm talking. If you're in Aaron's school, wake and bake, baby. Just do what you got to do. I'm kidding. Just ribbing Aaron there.
No, strange. I see what he's saying. I would say a little bit on the it matters to, if you're doing manga, they approach it differently. Now, manga, if you're drawing backgrounds, they're pretty accurate, and you're drawing all the nuts and bolts.
Well, manga
if you ever go look at
CGI backgrounds.
What's that, Jeremy?
There's a lot of manga that uses pre-rendered CGI backgrounds nowadays.
Yeah, they do. They do that, Aaron.
They do, but Akira didn't do that.
Right.
And that was intense.
The hallowed Akira. There we go. One must never criticize Akira in Aaron's presence.
Nope.
Blood will spurt from his ears. He will launch.
No, it's not it's criticism. It's just a different way, but they draw the characters cartoony. Their characters are iconic, and the background's realistic, and it's just a different way of taking it. It's Comic Con covers that in understanding comics a little bit.
Yes, very, very good call there. The genre does matter, and again, my coaching here, as I'm lecturing the aspiring
was for more Western comics,
Yes, is coming from the background of superhero, based on realism, in the school of the Jim Lee school, to use the most popular artist in that realm for the past probably 30 years. But that being said, it's important to just draw everything, and it will come through in your style. If you want to emulate a style like manga and that's your thing, go for it. If you want to fill in every corner, that's fine, go for it, because there's a niche genre, and there'll be a fan base for everything. But what I was commenting on too was the practical side of an editor might look at an overly rendered, overly detailed sequence of pages and go, okay, seriously, how long did this take you? Because we're knocking out, one issue a month here. And if you're going to be drawing, every rivet in this machine and, drawing a totally accurate, photo accurate car, can you do that in a monthly schedule? Now, granted, with today's technology, there are 3D sites that are free, that you don't have to become a member of, where you can go in and rotate a car, a machine, a motorcycle, an aircraft, a submarine, whatever it is.
Well, I know artists who basically build their own models in Google SketchUp. Some people do.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. SketchUp. Yes.
And one of my favorite mangaka, he basically created an entire city, with CGI, and every building, every room in this large city has been rendered. And just so later on, he's go into that room and draw within there.
Yes, I've talked to people who literally build the sets almost like they're building for a movie, and there's a clever approach there. I respect that, because what you'll do is say, okay, I'm drawing. Let's just use an example. I'm drawing Daredevil, right? So you get a model of Manhattan, and you start posing the camera in certain areas. You print it out. You throw it in a light box. You trace it, right? Your backgrounds are pretty much done. A lot of people would say, oh man, but you're cheating. It's not necessarily that. I use photography. I don't really trace it. But I do use photographs to look at when I'm drawing a cityscape, because I want it to have a realistic view. I actually, since we're theming on face to face tonight, I actually asked fans. I was in a comic store at the time, and we were having this debate of what about render 3D backgrounds, and then they're just drawing figures and just pasting them in Photoshop. And so you had that argument that people were like, oh, that's terrible, that's cheating. The other ones, oh man, come on, it's just they're getting it done, whatever. And I literally asked the people in the store, I said, look, I'm a penciler. Would you rather see me trace a perfectly accurate 3D rendered scene of a street scene and have it be absolutely correct and then draw a figure and paste it in? Or would you rather have it be not so perfect, but it's my vision of the street scene and it perfectly melds with the figure? What would you want to see? I mean, just without exception, 9 out of 10 people answered, oh, I want to see how you would draw it. The implication there was they can look at photography of Manhattan all day long. They can take pictures themselves on their cell phones. Reproducing a photograph is not what people buy comic books to see for the most part. There's always exceptions to these rules, but we're talking in general terms. They want to see what your vision of reality is, and that's part of the pitch. Realism is great. Hyperrealism, it can be cool. Photorealism can be very, very cold and boring. That's just from my point of view. Anybody want to chime in on that, Aaron? I know you're going to talk to me about Akira.
Photorealism. Well, no. What I was getting with Akira was not the fact that they draw the detail; is the fact that they approach it as doing that. In other words, you're like, why would you draw that detail? And I've often wondered that with manga myself. Why that approach? Why? I mean, because when you look at Akira as one of the example, I mean, now he had assistants doing this, but why do every nut and bolt in the background and do the icon? And I've read stuff about why they do it, but I do find it interesting that they don't do the same amount of detail on their characters, but they do it on the background. And why approach that? And I've always been curious about, like you, why not just do your own instead of doing it like a photo? And it's like, I don't know, they do. I'd be curious to know the reasoning behind it. Is it like an overall thinking approach? And another, a lot of European artists do that. I mean, you look at Milo Manera when he did the one about the Borgias, about the creation of the basically the mafia to the Catholic Church, and in the old Italian states, and he did like some of the Capitol buildings. It's like it's intense crowd scenes and stuff for reference scenes. But and so you have certain European artists that will go that way too. And I don't know.
Do they reuse them?
I have no.
Do they reuse the same scenes over and over and over again? Because then that's just reference.
I don't think so. I mean, Milo Manero, when he was doing this in the 80s and 90s. I mean, he's talking about Mobius too. Mobius did intense. But again, I think it's just a reference. European comics, I think, are more interested in the world building sometimes than the characters themselves. And so they will put the detail that we would put in the characters on the world building. Mobius is classic for this. So, it's just a different approach to storytelling, which I think is interesting.
I think that's why I think there's a difference to
go ahead, Joe.
Just straight up tracing. Like I said, if you use models and stuff, you can use models and not have a look. Retroscoping is a good way to explain this. Like the Lord of the Rings film and so forth. They obviously didn't have real hobbits and orcs on the set when they're doing the retroscoping. They had the humans dress up as them, and then they adapt that into their style when doing the film. And that's how I think comics could benefit from that, where you're not just straight up tracing. Yes, you have everything there, so you know perspective, you know how things should look. Then as you're going over it, you slowly change it, little details, so that it matches your style, like you're saying. I'm not saying do a photorealistic, carbon copy of the image or rendering that you see, but just look at it and just take the perspective and everything else from there and adapt it as you're tracing it.
Yeah. I agree. It can be very, very helpful. Roland popped in and said, how boring would it be if Batman drove a Mustang?
You mean like in the movie trailer?
Like in the movie trailer, right?
Like the new one they has, and he's basically driving a Mustang. So
I know, right? He makes a fun point there, and we've talked about this before. It again, content sensitive here. It's a Batman is such an iconic figure that having interpreted him over the past 70 plus years, over and over again with different auteurs and different artists, makes it an even stronger icon. And so you can do the hyper realistic sanitation that works with Chris Nolan, but then you can still have the 1989 version with big fins, and it really, you can enjoy all of it. Everybody's going to have their favorite take, but you can enjoy all of it. I wanted to address very quickly before we talk about our special announcement tonight. Aaron said something earlier about the why in particularly in manga and in Asian drawing and storytelling, do they often spend extra time on backgrounds and the characters look cartoony or more modular? I believe that's cultural, Aaron, because if you look at the cultural art in Japan, you start to understand that, and even in Asia, we're talking about India, and then inflected through China, the caste systems there were very strict. And so what you saw was less individual portrayals and more caste system portrayals, modular portrayals of the typical samurai, the typical merchant, the typical holy man.
Their old artwork were backgrounds and scenery. Majority of old Japanese stuff were scenery and stuff. I think another way it comes to, and this could be, and I'm guessing here, so take this as a guess. I know manga is heavily influenced by Walt Disney. If you look at old Walt Disney films, a lot of the backgrounds in those were very painted very realistically, but the characters were not. So I wonder if their influence came a little bit from those animated movies, and I'm just guessing.
I think so.
And I think it's a mixture of that, and I think it's historical art there. Yeah, they're much more into. I mean, you see that especially in Studio Ghibli films. He's very big on sweeping vistas and backgrounds. That is heavily influenced by Japanese traditional art of seeing those scenes. Yeah.
When I worked at Disney World, we had a 2 or 3 day indoctrination, and they went through the history of Disney and the artistic style and how he did everything and why. And they did bring that up, that modern anime, especially like the eyes, the big eyes was a very Disney thing.
Yeah. And so I get a feeling it could be like they were just like, well, how do we put animation on paper? And we want these realistic backgrounds. And I think they were kind of mimicking that. And then it just took hold as far as their sort of traditional comic storytelling techniques or whatever. I think over here, and again, it's just a focus. I think over here we're much more focused on the character, and in a lot of manga, sometimes not so much. I know. I mean, even though I bring up a character, I did know in an interview he did say Neo Tokyo was one of the main, if not the main character. So they, and I think we do the same thing with Batman. I think Batman's backgrounds are more rendered than most comics because Gotham is actually so much of a character that world just Batman is. So I think it matters on the story, but I do think depending on the setting, it depends on what you focus on. And
also, a lot of manga, the detailed backgrounds are not every single panel.
Usually, no, they're not.
Yeah, so that basically allows you to set up, like an established shot, basically. It helps set the mood, the world. So that's when you start losing those details in the background, it's not as jarring going forward.
Yeah, and it depends on the manga. I mean, I know a lot of like girl manga stuff doesn't focus much. I'm reading Blade the Immortal. He is much looser style, which is he's very fascinating. Even his backgrounds are pretty realistic. He's a very loose pencil sketch through the whole, and he does a lot of story. I know this sounds really weird with feet. So when he does a lot of like people talking, whatever, he will illustrate what they're doing with their feet.
Interesting.
Yeah,
usually it's hands and faces.
Very interesting. So for girl, he had one with this girl was nervous, and he illustrated her nervousness not by her face, but what she was doing with her feet.
Yeah.
Very fascinating. It's very interesting. I mean, just reading. I mean, again, you're getting another type of storytelling. So I noticed that a lot, and he's fantastic at drawing feet, and he draws hands too. But I'm like, you're a master at drawing feet. Maybe he has a foot fetish. I don't know.
I was just gonna say,
yeah, maybe there's something.
But
to
yeah,
that.
I mean, literally though, I'm glad you brought that up too, because hands are one of the most expressive tools we can use. And I will often talk to people who are aspiring and working to break in, and I'll say, practice on hands. Oh, I hate drawing hands. Everybody hates drawing hands. Everybody hates
Well,
drawing
but,
things
yeah.
that immediately identify whether you can pull it off or not. They're unforgiving.
Yeah.
Hands are unforgiving. Faces you have to learn to draw because obviously, faces,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But people tend to find ways to hide the hands, or I'm going to do this
Yeah.
always, or I'm going to do this always. Expressive hands are a
Not gonna
clue.
say a word.
They are a clue to where you are in your drawing ability. We will save a lot of this for a future show. I'd love to get more into the cultural aspects of anime backgrounds and more modular character forms, but I have to announce that we have got a new Kickstarter, and I think Aaron, if you could, when you get a moment, bring that image up that I shared with you, and while you're bringing that up, I'll catch everybody up. You are aware that we have a Christmas special that is over 100 pages because of the 15 plus creators, and they're each having a 6-page Christmas story. That is on Indiegogo right now. That is on In Demand, which doesn't guarantee necessarily a by Christmas delivery, but it is still available. What we're talking about now, though, is a brand new announcement. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is our brand new Kickstarter, the double feature, White Devil #1
Woohoo!
and Twilight Grim #3. Woohoo! And White Devil #1 is let's see what happens here. I'm gonna read the description here. It's a science fiction fantasy story. It's full color, 24 pages. This is the first of a 4-issue mini series, and this is the time to jump on this one, folks. This is Temple O'Rourke, the White Devil of Japan of tomorrow. So Aaron was talking about Neo Tokyo. So this is kind of cool for those anime fans and maybe those who want to step into the slightly anime subject matter, even if it's not the style. The White Devil of Japan of tomorrow is saving some girls from human traffickers. He discovers one of them has been cybernetically altered against her will, and he determines to get to the bottom of it. And the side note says he hates scientists. So it sounds like a good sci-fi adventure. And Barb, you were telling us a little bit about Twilight Grim.
I was. If you like vampires, you like Twilight Grim. There's the good side of the city with the posh, upscale people. And then across the wall, there is the slums that are full of the vampires. And if you commit a crime in the posh side, they just toss you over the wall to the vampires. But there is a vigilante hero on the vampire side. His name is Twilight Grim, and he is bent on saving the poor people that are sent over for snack food.
Nice, great pitch. So
and that's number 3, right? That's issue 3.
That's number 3. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And this is we are about to launch right now, and I am saying it, and so Roland's going to do it. It launches right now, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching it launch live. This is the Kickstarter Silverline double feature, Twilight Grim #3, White Devil #1. We have a live launch, and on that note, we have had a fantastic chat tonight. I'd like to thank everyone for being here. Please join us again next Wednesday for our wondrous Wednesday Wham. And there he is. He's sharing it. There it is. Thanks, Aaron. The Kickstarter. Everybody go to it and support it. White Devil and Twilight Grim, because the best we can say, as we always close out our shows on Wednesday, folks, we say it together. Make mine.
You don't do
Good night, everybody.
We weren't even close.